I may have to make a bar that bolts onto here to hold this from spinning. Well, it is another fantastic day here at Fun King Garage, and today I am inviting you to continue on with the progress with me of re-gearing the rear end of the Fummins. Oh, I do want to note that a gentleman named Keith reached out to me and said that I'm using the wrong ABS tone ring for my gear ratio, and he sent me some links and pictures, and I looked, and he's absolutely right. So upon further review, I found that I ordered the right part and got the wrong part. The ABS tone ring that I should have should be completely flat and not have that little lip in it. And obviously the one I have has the little lip in it. So what am I going to do about it? Well, I'm going to send it. We'll see what happens. Okay, I drilled a couple of holes into this piece of flat bar, and I've now put the torque multiplier onto the socket and onto the pinion. I have my breaker bar. I have no idea how well this is going to work. I know that we have to turn it in the direction that you're supposed to turn it, at the same time as fighting this from turning. Yeah. This is going to be a challenge. Gonna have to figure out a way to lock all of this together. Yeah, gonna have to figure out a way to lock all this together. Alright, so I've resorted at this point to sliding this metal flat bar into the arm of my lift. I've put my impact gun on there and I've been hammering it for a little bit, and it looks like it's actually starting to move. I even put a pipe on the breaker bar and stood on it and didn't move, so let's see if she goes. And there she goes. Success. I was really about to give up and take it somewhere and see if I could get somebody else to do it. So I've never been able to find a 1/2 inch drive breaker bar longer than 2 feet. I think 26 inches was the longest one I ever seen, but they're generally about 24 inches. And I get it. You make that breaker bar too long, and the only thing it's going to be breaker in is your sockets. I could have picked up a 3/4 inch breaker bar, but to be honest with you, the only 3/4 inch socket I own is the one I'm using today. I've always had this theory where if I needed 3/4 inch sockets, I didn't want to work on it. That theory's kind of holding true today. It's kicking my butt. There's no doubt about it. The torque multiplier was of zero help for this particular process. I'm hoping that it works okay for putting the nut back on. We'll find out, I guess. Too many odd angles. So when you're turning in the loosening direction counterclockwise, let's see, now I have to think about it. I'm turning in a counterclockwise way. The torque multiplier wants to go clockwise at the same time that the pinion wants to go counterclockwise. And it just, I'm sure there's a tool for it, and I'm sure I could have welded something up, but it felt like that would have been a lot of work to do what I just did. I'm glad in the end that the impact wrench worked. That nut is off of there. That scary, scary nut. But now it's a matter of getting this pinion flange off of here, and then we can start on the internals. So using this Big Daddy 3-jaw puller, which I got from a friend of mine years ago. He was no no longer interested in doing automotive work, so I acquired a few things from him. And this being one of them, and it's not a high dollar one or anything, but it's the biggest one that I own. It's pretty worn out. I've loaned it out a couple of times and it comes back worse for wear every time I do. Now, of course, the instructions manual tells me to use a yoke puller. I don't have a yoke. Mine is a flange. So I am hoping that this is going to do okay. And I'm thinking that I should probably just go ahead and put the impact wrench on this. I think that's the easiest thing I've done on this rear end yet. I was just looking to see if this was keyed, and it's not. And then I realized it doesn't matter. I'm not putting the same pinion back in here. Oh, that smell. It just gets you right in the teeth. Kind of just hangs in your throat. It is absolutely awful. I'm going to run a wire brush around this seal just so that I can kind of see how and where to get up underneath that. That pinion seal is actually out in the weather. It's back behind. Even the seal itself is technically in the elements. Alright, so now I got to do is figure out what I can get up underneath that seal to pop that out of there. That seems to work. Obviously this pinion seal is not reusable. And if you were the kind that were going to be in this far and try to reuse the pinion seal, well, you and I would need to have a talking. Look at there. That was almost as easy as pulling the pinion flange. Alright, well at this point I'm going to move this differential housing over to the press, get it fitted. Got to get a block of wood underneath there to catch that pinion because we don't want to damage it. Now we're going to push that out of there. Now I'm going to move the differential housing over to the press and hopefully with success push that pinion out of there. I did cut a couple pieces of 2x6. They actually recommend a 6x6x6 block, but looking at the way this is going to set in there, 6 inches of block wouldn't fit, so hopefully I can get it in there. So, because I made the blocks fit inside the differential housing, they don't quite fit on the press quite right. In fact, the differential housing doesn't fit on the press quite right. When I try to center it, it drops down off of the press. So I might have to try turning it sideways. It barely fits, but I think that we're going to be okay. It should be noted that I'm literally pressing the pinion out with my finger. Again, after the amount of stuff that I've been through with this differential, it's really nice to finally have some stuff that's cooperating. And I think that we are now on the first board. So ever so carefully, I'm going to remove one of those pieces of wood. And the pinion's out just like that. I'm going to take this pain in the butt pinion nut and put it back on there, and that will allow me to pick this up without the wooden block. Now we're back on the hydraulic table. Now all I gotta do is see if we can get that pinion all the way out of there. That sounds like it. Now if you've ever done rear end work, you've held a pinion in your hand, but was it this big? This is a mammoth rear end. Again, something you don't say to your wife or your girlfriend. Making sure that we save that spacer. We're going to need that for the new pinion because I don't think the new pinion comes with one. Oh, I hate that smell. I'll probably say that 5,000 times in this video. Just, whew. At this point, we have 2 races sitting in here. And what I am curious on is there is actually something in the manual that tells you to use a feeler gauge to make sure that the races were seated properly. So before I go any further, I'm going to do a little research on that, and I'm going to poke around in here with a feeler gauge and make sure that I know what I'm doing when the new races go in. So I looked at the manual again, and I got out my feeler gauges, and when I realized what feeler they were asking for, I totally realized it is the thinnest one in a set of feeler gauges. And they just want you to make sure that you can't even get that underneath the races, and therefore they are seated all the way. I thought it was asking for it to be that measurement, not to resist that measurement. So I'm going to set these off to the side because we will need them again fairly soon when we push the new races in. So I guess it's now off to the races. Okay, that was terrible. But I am going to drive these races out of there. I think I'm going to turn this over and drive the outer one out first because it is quite a bit larger in size. Oh, and I did just find a little bit of metal shavings stuck to the magnet of the fill plug. That's pretty good. I didn't see any in here. I think because of the way that these are sized, I may be able to drive these out with the press instead of out with a drift punch. So let me get my set. I'm starting to run out of horizontal surface. The more you disassemble stuff, the more parts you got laying around. I don't know if I have one large enough. Ooh, no, that looks like it's going to go just about right on through, and that's the largest one that I have. That will work though. I have a bearing housing from the differential. Alright, so I'm going to transfer this back to the press. I'll push that out, and then, in fact, I'll push both those out. Not 100% sure I'm going to push the big one out, but I'll figure it out, and then we'll get back to it. The races are out, both of them. I did end up having to remove the larger of the two with a drift punch and a hammer, but these things are so hard that it's not really a problem. Now, I was going to mark these, but they actually say Timken's right on them, and the other ones are Yukon Gear, but I'm still going to just Sharpie marker a little X on them so that I know that I don't end up driving in the wrong seats. This isn't going to be easy, but I'm going to use the old ones to drive in the new ones. The bearing races are in. They passed the feeler gauge test, and we are ready to go to the next step, which is cleaning up the new pinion and pressing the bearings onto that. Now that is going to come with its own set of challenges because I don't have the correct tool for that. So I either can do the heat method where you heat the bearing and drop it on there. Some people even freeze the pinion. Or I can make the tool. So I'm going to evaluate which, and we'll get back to that. So after a bit of consideration, I've decided that instead of trying to put together the things that I need to be able to press that bearing onto the pinion, I'm going to try the hot-cold method. I've watched it a few times on the internet. Looks like it works brilliantly. One of the YouTubers that I watch all the time, Paul at Fabrats, he does it this way as well. In fact, he does not chill the pinion. He just heats the bearing and boop, drops it right on there. I've had the pinion in the refrigerator, or I'm sorry, in the freezer now for about 3 hours. I am preheating the oven that we use here for Cerakoting and powder coating, and when that gets up to temperature, I'm going to put the bearing in there at 225 degrees for about 20 minutes, and we're going to give it a go. I figure if it fails and doesn't seat all the way down on there, I was going to have to try to press it on anyway. So just so you know, the real reason that I decided kind of not to do it is the pinion shaft itself is right at 2 inches. So a 2-inch pipe isn't going to fit over the top of that very well. I would have to then find something slightly larger. It just seems like a lot of work. I think this is going to be the better option. The bearing has been in the oven now for about 20 minutes. I'm going to go grab the pinion out of the freezer and bring it out and set it on this block of wood. I'm then going to grab the pinion out of the oven using MIG welding mitts and hopefully drop it right down to the bottom in one fell swoop. Swoop? Let's go with swoop. I almost think I should have been wearing the welding gloves for touching that part of it. That thing is cold. Fingers crossed. Gloves on. Here goes nothing. That's a fail. It only made it on a tiny little bit. So either I didn't heat the bearing up enough or it's just too tight a tolerance. So we're going to go back to plan A and press that thing down on there. Honestly, at this point, looking at it, I think it just wasn't enough heat in the bearing. I went by the suggestion of quite a few people online, but this bearing is also a lot bigger than the typical bearing. So that's probably where the issue came in. So upon further review, I've absolutely determined that I didn't put enough heat in the bearing. It's not just back to room temperature, it is the bearing's icicle. So the the pinion was way colder than the bearing was hot. And that's why it decided to seize so quickly. But I found this piece of 2-inch electrical conduit. It's thick wall. It's not EMT. It's the big stuff. This was a scrap piece that I had, and it fits down over the top of that pinion absolutely perfectly. I cut it definitely a little too long, but that's okay. I'd rather it too long than too short. I'm going to put it over on the press and get that bearing pressed down in there. One of these days I want to build a press that's got a adjustable table. You just turn the crank. That pinion's still cold. That piece of 2-inch electrical conduit worked fantastically for that. It didn't touch the pinion shaft at all, pushed that bearing all the way down. And now we get to move on to the next step. Man, that thing is freezing. You'd think I put it in the freezer or something. The next thing I need to do is put the pinion back into the housing. But I really want to give this housing one more cleaning before that happens. So I'm going to get this housing all cleaned up, and then we'll come back and put the thing together. And we should be able to put the differential back in and get the backlash set. And God willing, we'll be able to put this thing back in the truck. Alright, so I had to come up with this jig thing to hold the torque multiplier as I'm pulling the torque wrench. I'm using 250 pounds on the torque wrench, which is putting about 750 pounds into the bolt, and we're going to see how that goes. That's only 225. Oh! And you can't extend the handle on a torque wrench. Oh, that's 240. I'm seeing stars. I don't know how it's going to work. You want to push?
Yeah, I can push while you pull.
All right. Well, we got to do it from the end of the wrench. So you're going to have to push on my hand. No, on. There you go. Okay. We hit it. The beep was good.
Right.
I'll take the beep. Now we got to check the rotational torque and we'll be good. So in the ongoing saga of the rear end, the rotational torque was entirely too high. The torque wrench maxed out at 80 inch-pounds, and it was taking far more than that to rotate that, which led me to needing a different pinion spacer, which then led to this box showing up. I had to get online and order a kit of pinion spacers. The downside is there's no way to measure to see what size you truly need. And the kit was the best option, although it's expensive. It was about $220 some odd to get this box of spacers here. But these spacers are about $50 a piece. Now, if you know what size you need, what I did learn was out on the web, you can actually buy them through Chevrolet, because some of the heavy-duty Chevrolet trucks do use the same rear end. And they were about half the price. They were about 25 bucks through Chevy, weirdly. So, and what I believe that I have here is a total of 6 different size shims wrapped in wax paper. So now I'm going to have to determine what size is what and figure out what size I want to go with. I don't think I want to go to the next size up. I do need it to be taller than the factory one was. 7 of them actually. I don't want to go to directly to the next size up. I think I'm going to go 2 sizes up and try that out. And again, to try it each time, I have to put the whole pinion assembly together, torque it down, and then check the rotational torque. That's not such a big deal. The big deal is undoing that bolt to take it apart, press everything back apart if it isn't right. So I'm going to go 2 sizes up from what was in their factory, and we're going to see what happens. I have chosen a spacer that isn't 2 sizes bigger, but 3 sizes bigger. And the reason I did that was because when I measure with a caliper, the one that was 2 sizes bigger, it's almost exactly the size of the one that was in there. These are marked. The one that was in there was not marked. I went based off of caliper measurement on that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and load this one up, see what happens. That's going to tell me where I want to go next if this isn't right. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to pull it apart and do it again with a smaller, with a smaller spacer. And I knew that was a risk. I just throw that on the floor if I'm done with it. Well, it definitely turns easier than it did. Let's see where our rotational torque is. So we have to go from 3/4 to half, from half to quarter. Out comes the inch pound. 1, 2, 3, and we're reading at 4. It is too light. Yes, I wanted to do it again. It was only taking about 10 inch-pounds there to roll that rotationally. So let's do it again.
A few moments later.
Oh, that feels pretty tight.
It looks tight.
It feels tight like it was before. Like a little too tight. 3/4 to half. Half to quarter.
I guess this will tell.
In a hurry.
I'm gonna say it's too tight.
Judging by the way it feels, I'm gonna say it's too tight. Oh yeah, I can't even. Because I got one in between. I took a gamble. It was a 50-50 shot either way. And I did it again. And I don't know if I didn't film it or if I lost the footage. I don't know what happened. But if you want to see that footage, just rewind and watch the last time I did it. It was pretty much the same, except for this time the rotational torque was correct. Alright, so I've got the differential back in here now, and I've got it set as close to 0 as possible, and I say as close because I've run the threading on this side all the way in. The ring gear is pushed as far in as I can possibly get it, and it is very, very, very close. So I'm going to go ahead and put the dial indicator on it now and see where we're sitting. But you're gonna have to wait until next time. There's just so much content to cover with this, but you may have to wait a little longer because I have some other content that I really have to get out to you. It's getting close to power tour time, and I have so many stories to tell and so much to show you. So I will try to juggle some things in depending on how the editing schedule works out. Now, of course, the next thing that I want to tell you is how much I appreciate you being here. And I don't say that in jest. I really do appreciate you watching and liking and subscribing and all of that stuff. It truly, from my heart, I truly appreciate it, because that's why I do this. I definitely would not film myself working for no reason, though it does sometimes work out to go back and reference things and go, oh, that's right, that's how it was. But anyway, don't forget that that comment section down there is open to you at all times. Please feel free to drop a line, make a note. I read them all. I try to reply to all of them. I think I'm pretty much there. If you've ever dropped me a comment and I didn't reply, maybe it was a reply to another reply, I don't know. But that comment section's always there for you. Also, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. The thumbs up's always appreciated as well. Now, if you can't tell by the amount of crap that's behind me, I really got to get back to work. So much to do and so little time to do it in. So, as always, thanks for watching.